the topic for this session is Bitcoin and personal finances. So I love personal finances just from a personal perspective, and I grew up on Dave Ramsey, and my parents had me do the envelope method and all that stuff. So that's just I'm coming in with that a little bit of just already kind of being a nerd in that even before Bitcoin. Okay, so then I kind of say this thing where budgeting is hard. Budgeting while you're married is harder. Budgeting while you're married in two currencies, one coming from the internet, is hardest. So that's what we're going to tackle today. Honestly, we're just going to approach it from a very we're going to go from a philosophical perspective, and then we're going to talk about some tools, and then I'm going to get into my Excel spreadsheet, and so we're going to hit all of that. So yeah, I'm glad you're here. What this is talking about, moving from having USD as your mental unit of account to having BTC as your mental unit of account. And so in this session, we're talking about it from a personal perspective. In the session immediately prior, I was talking about it more from a society perspective. So I had this funny joke. Look, this is me before I was a Bitcoiner. This is me now that I'm a Bitcoiner. So Bitcoin changes you. Bitcoin, your unit of account changes you, okay? And so I love meetups, and so I want you all to tell your friends in Kansas City to keep doing this. I love that Omaha's doing this. I hope that we do it again next year. I hope that we line it up with the Berkshire Hathaway conference, and I hope we get hundreds and thousands of Bitcoiners coming through Omaha Airport and coming here. And so thankful for you that are local also and how you're growing that. So like I said, previous session, I went over kind of how our meetup in Orange County. So I live in Orange County, California. Here's a little restaurant where we hold meetups at. Bitcoiners come when you have Bitcoin adoption. And so today, when we're talking about at a personal level, just know that as you personally adopt Bitcoin, it's also affecting this larger societal thing. So cover that. And yeah, let's leave it on this while we start. So this is a workshop though. This is not just me talking. And so I do want to get a little participation. And so if you have budgeting insights and you want to talk, we definitely have room for that. And then I also want to say off the bat too, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a Bitcoiner. So I first bought Bitcoin in 2015, and I bought a little bit more each year. And so you become more and more ingrained in it, and the more that you hold it, and the more that your mental unit of account switches over. And so today, I'm not talking to you from a professional advice thanks for coming to the seminar type thing. This is honestly me and my wife and my family thinking about budgeting and thinking about fiat and thinking about Bitcoin and thinking about what tools are available. For example, just even look outside of Bitcoin, finding a savings account that pays you any money is really hard right now, okay? So finding the tools that do what you need them to do is really hard. I'm just going to define Bitcoin circular economy for a second, because at a high level, end game is Bitcoin is the money. Bitcoin is the money, and we're not using fiat, and we're but right now we're in transitionary times. So businesses are in transitionary times of having to figure out payment processors for both currencies. Individuals are in transitionary times of having to figure that out. And so if you hear that term Bitcoin circular economy, it just means designing out the fiat and doing life in Bitcoin. So moving on to a personal Bitcoin standard, we talked about that there's 100 million sats inside one Bitcoin. Sats are the base unit of Bitcoin, and so stacking sats, and there's no, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency. The purchasing power gets better over time instead of the purchasing power getting worse over time. And so that's what a lot of us are doing, is we're moving on to the Bitcoin standard. When we look at our savings account, and something that I'm going to do right now is a big thing I'm going to highlight today is different stacks of Bitcoin for different goals. Because when you budget in your USD, is all your money in your checking account? No. You have different buckets where you're putting your dollars to do different things with. Bitcoin can be the same way. And the more that you continue to move on to the Bitcoin standard, you'll recognize that, and so that's what I hope to do today, is just kind of open your eyes to different ways of managing your Bitcoin, different stacks for different things. Because that's how, not just think, because Bitcoin is so let's move on to this, spending versus hodling. This is a fiercely debated thing. When Bitcoin first started, a lot of people, so because there's so, all right, let's do this actually. I'll turn it around. What makes Bitcoin valuable? Someone name something. Using it. Mm-hmm.
Scarcity.
Scarcity. Yep. security.
Visibility.
Dude, so let's go off that. Okay, so censorship resistance. A lot of people are very passionate about, I'm super glossing over the story, but like a lot of people at the very beginning of Bitcoin were very passionate about just the censorship resistance, okay? And the kind of like Austrian economics, like savings technology kind of narratives have kind of like come from behind. And a lot of times we can feel like these two ideas are competing, but they're not. Like both ideas, holding them with open palms is honestly what makes Bitcoin like as beautiful as it is. So in my opinion, like spending versus hodling is not competing. Like Bitcoin is savings technology. Like we know that. Like Bitcoin protects its purchasing power better than fiat money, period. But Bitcoin is also censorship resistant, and with the Lightning Network, you can cut out middlemen and you can cut out credit card fees. And so as a medium of exchange, it's also very, very, very powerful. And so we're all like, as we're in the marketplace and doing business, we're like constantly, always having that attention. And so I like tackling that right at the beginning of that, because I'm gonna talk in a minute about how like I think about my Bitcoin in like checking, savings, investing, the same way I think about US dollars. And then I think about how much inside checking I hold in fiat and I hold in Bitcoin. Then inside savings, how much I hold in USD, how much I hold in Bitcoin. Then investing, how much I hold in USD, how much I hold in Bitcoin. And because I want to move my whole life onto this. I want other people to move their whole life onto this. And Steven talked earlier about like investing in Bitcoin companies, and there's solutions for like almost each and every like financial thing that you do now. It's not like Bitcoin's not one-dimensional. And so yeah, so different stacks for different goals. So let's flip it around and to get right into that. So I did this talk on YouTube. This is a little bit updated of it because I've like come across just a lot more just insights. And so this is my personal breakdown right now. Like this is just me like thinking about my life and how, and we'll get into the tools of this because, so let's tackle checking first because that's kind of the hardest. What do I mean by this? Like where 95% of it is in USD, but then 5% of it is in BTC? What I think about is, so my checking account where my paychecks come into, my bills go out of, that is what it is at the bank. But what I'm trying to keep in mind with this is I'm trying to think, like Bitcoin has 3 second layers that are being developed right now, like Lightning, Liquid, and RSK. And if you throw in CoinJoin and like Whirlpool in there also, that's spending technology. Like Lightning could be spending technology. And so I try to keep that in mind about where just holding some in those channels and not holding it all on a hardware wallet so that I'm like working the muscles of knowing those layers and being prepared for those things if they present itself. And then we'll dive into like specific tools also, but then you all are aware also of like Fold app and Strike app. Like I would consider those like transitionary checking accounts. Who's familiar with Fold app? Perfect, cover it in a second. Who's familiar with Strike app? Cool, let's sit on this right now and then I'll, so look. So here's just so you have the logos in your head. So here's Fold app, here's Strike app, and download both. What do I mean by these being transitionary checking accounts? So Fold, if you're at a merchant that has regular credit card processing, as the majority of them are, what can you do? You can hold your USD balance at Fold, you can swipe your debit card, and then the points, instead of getting credit card points or airline miles, it goes into Bitcoin. So I just am like trying to move my mind towards like, that's a Bitcoin checking account. This is a checking account that speaks Bitcoin and speaks USD. And you can swipe your card in the old world, then move your points in the new world. Okay? And then what does Strike do? Strike, you hold your USD balance, but then you're at a forward-thinking merchant, and you're able to spend your USD, and they receive Bitcoin. And so that's a checking account that speaks both languages also. And so leaning into that at a personal level then makes you, as you're building your meetups and going to conferences and seeing things for sale outside, it helps you like live in the new reality. It helps you live and create that personally and work those muscles personally, while at the same time, moving to savings and spending versus hodling because we're all trying to increase our Bitcoin stack. So like that's the classic thing, right? Like you don't want to give away your own Bitcoin and can keep stacking your Bitcoin. But rather than talking down on commerce, why not just use the tools that are available? So if you reach merchants and they want to accept Bitcoin, like Bitcoiners should pay Bitcoiners in Bitcoin. Like we should lean into the new world, and we should, it's like a classic software thing of like we should eat our own dog food. Like if this is the greatest thing in the world and this is better than fiat money, then we should use it. Well, what I was going to jump into, what that was making me think of is I know some apps let you like spend your crypto balance with a card, and I would say that that's almost the opposite of like what I'm talking about now. So there completely are apps that pitch that, but what I would say is that's moving backwards. Like we're upgrading our money. We're upgrading the money to the new world, and so I would say like if I was meeting with them in a like professional like capacity, I would say like that's not really serving the users or serving society. Yeah, because what would be better is to watch the merchants, upgrade. So that's some stuff on transitionary checking accounts. Anything else on checking accounts or like spending versus hodling? Anyone feel like pushing back on like the spending versus hodling at all, or do we feel like we covered that well? Because it's tough. It's tough, and I honestly believe like last year, I actually think Bitcoin Twitter did a great job of kind of like punching through that and really coming together on this. And I think we have like healed a lot of the tension between like both these worlds. I guess so a little bit harder on, we talked about like these apps, but let's talk about like Lightning, Liquid, and like Whirlpool for a second, and like coin joining. Like those are all privacy ways to be spending Bitcoin. And so, like I said, I'm talking very casually like a Bitcoiner, and like so if you use Lightning to buy a $5 hamburger, like truly, like speaking as a Bitcoiner, I don't say problem with that. Like I think that's the reality that we're living in. Like the money is being debased, and so that's reality. And so I think we shouldn't be afraid of like using the tools and like understanding the tools. But then also we have the transitionary tools that are good also. And so I would just be prepared, in both circumstances. So let's talk about savings. This one's more of a classic, right? This one's classic, just savings, number go up here. And so in my personal experience, I have about, 25% of my liquid savings in USD, 75% in Bitcoin. And these worlds kind of get blurred, but I'm separating them out because I want to talk to you about retirement accounts today too. Yeah, so savings. This is the classic one. And I think majority of people get that. Like you're not getting paid any money on your savings account, so you're going to put it in Bitcoin. Okay, so let's talk about investing. And the app I want to talk about this right now is Choice app. Okay, so I actually meant to say this at the beginning. So my day job is I do product marketing here at Choice app. And then I help run those meetups like at nighttime and just like talk to people like this. So a big trend and a movement that's happening right now is like moving your retirement accounts into Bitcoin. And so it's like once you've progressed through steps 1 and 2 and you're just looking for every possible way to keep getting long Bitcoin, like there's apps and tools that are popping up that allow you to do this. And so what Choice does is if you have money at Schwab, money at TD Ameritrade, money at Fidelity, and you want to keep it within the tax advantage stack, you want to keep it within your retirement accounts, you can transfer it over. And it maintains all the same properties, but then you're able to hold Bitcoin. And not just a derivative of Bitcoin, you're able to hold physical Bitcoin.
And there's no taxes on that?
Correct, because you're moving it from IRA to IRA, and it's all staying in there. Yep, exactly. Correct, because when at the end of the traditional. Yeah, so that makes sense on that part. And then, okay, so there's 2 parts of Bitcoin budgeting. 2 parts of Bitcoin budgeting, and then we'll go to the Excel spreadsheet. What I also want to talk about, in addition to kind of this is pretty basic, like checking, savings, investing, and thinking about flowing from USD into Bitcoin, and just always increasing how much you're doing. There's other ways to diversify where your Bitcoin is also, and there's 2 ways to do that: method of acquiring, and then also method of custody. So method of acquiring You can buy it through, so what do most people do when they first get into Bitcoin? Coinbase, Cash App, regular. Okay, so that's just KYC Bitcoin. Okay, and then what's another way to do it once you get a little bit more deeper into it? We talked about, sure, right here, BISC. So BISC is a peer-to-peer way. It's kind of like a Craigslist for Bitcoin. Or there's also ATMs that only require cell phone approval. And then there's other ways in the tax-advantaged retirement accounts. So you're buying within those entities and kind of leveling up in that way. So there's multiple ways of acquiring Bitcoin. And then there's multiple ways of custodying Bitcoin. You either have it on an exchange, you either have it on your phone, you have it on a hardware wallet, you have it in a multi-sig. So this is like really the core of like what I want to talk about today. And I want to like, we can sit on this and I want to hear people brainstorm on it because this has been like a whole just years and multiple years of me just like thinking about Bitcoin as money and dealing with the reality, you know, of taxes and where we live and just like the hopes for society and the hopes for freedom while at the same time, you know, the realities of personal finance. And so all of that's kind of like pretty complex and each one of us is like developing our own Bitcoin stack that's like solving those things. And so that's like the core of what I want to talk about just basically like if you walked in here today and you only saw Bitcoin through like one lens, there's so many different ways you can pull it apart. I should have written out the sidechain layers for checking better because it goes right in here. Like basically, like I said, Lightning, Liquid, Whirlpool. There's so many different ways on that. So many different methods of custody. So many different methods of acquiring. And then as you're just like mentally thinking about your money and thinking about upgrading each stack in your life. So that's a good answer. And it's also that everything you just said was not rambling at all. That's actually why I came here to like talk about this and because different stacks for different things and because the future is unknown. The hospital bills are unknown. The future is unknown. The current, like the future of government is unknown. The future of laws is unknown. The future of the price of Bitcoin is unknown. The future of your health is unknown. The reason why I want people to be able to see that there's multiple different methods of acquiring Bitcoin and multiple different methods of storing Bitcoin and multiple tools that are available to you is for that reason. So that you can survey all the landscape of all the tools from all like the apps we talked about today and all the apps that aren't on the screen and figure out different stacks for different things. And so to be this, want to know what the answer to that could be? It could be that so if your USD savings account just legitimately is not cutting it and you have to put it into Bitcoin, right? But you still have the outside shot of the hospital bill. Want to know what could be the actual answer? The actual answer could be buying it on Coinbase, holding it on Coinbase, selling it back to Coinbase, paying the taxes, and then still coming out on top because of how bad the alternative of holding fiat money was. That completely could be the answer. It could be overcomplicating it to try to go BISC and then sell back through BISC because you exactly talked about the liquidity of going back out through Craigslist and meetups and like things like that. That's a reality, and it's hard to do that. And yeah.
Borrow against it?
Yep, you could borrow against it. That's something I didn't even have on the whiteboard. Yeah, exactly.
So I have the hospital bill I could.
The non-KYC game is hard. Like it's hard. And that's why, but like the Roth IRA game is easy. Roth IRA game is easy. And so it's that diversifying. It's like mentally diversifying, like letting your brain relax and like being able to be open to multiple scenarios of the future. Because even if we are turned 46, I understand your train of thought and like I think about this a lot and like that's different stacks for different things. And if we are 46, all the benefits of Roth IRAs are all still there. So say Bitcoin becomes the money. You are still inside a Roth IRA, which is honestly like a super great tool that's like still happening. And then you can make future investments still all within the Roth for the next 20 years still. And you're doubling it even better. With so like better money inside a better thing. Inside this bucket, choosing the right thing, and then you forward down here to method of custody. One thing that's awesome about this method is there are 3 methods of custody. Like there's an interest product, there's a institutional custody product, and then we also do have the ability for self-custody still within the same IRA structure. And so we do like start to tackle a little bit of what you're talking about wanting to have full custody still within the package.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Is that through CASA? Did I see
Yeah.
that on the website?
Yeah. So streamline with CASA when you sign up for a choice account and then you pick hold your own keys. Yeah. We like plug you right into, if you choose to, we can fast track you to a CASA Gold account. Mm-hmm. I think there's also people in the situation where, you take the orange pill and think about Bitcoin, move over, talking about on the front page, when you switch from USD as your unit of account to Bitcoin as your unit of account, say you already had a 20-year career or a 5-year career or 7-year career somewhere else, and you had been diligently putting into your 401k and putting into your, target date fund and kind of doing it the kind of traditional, I love watching personal finance YouTube. Like, that's how I come at this from there's the, you should contribute to your 401k because they match it, why leave free money on the table, all the classic, say you were doing that. Say you were doing that for 10 years, 12 years, 13 years. That's where the choice solution comes in too, of you can get that into Bitcoin. So yeah, let's, we've got 10 minutes left, 12 minutes. Let me show you this real fast. I just want to get everyone's take on this. So this is a spreadsheet that I call it the Bitcoin net worth tool, because what I do with this is it calculates your net worth in USD and it calculates it in BTC. And then there's a cool little line graph. So I know this is a lot on the page. I can email this link out, but I just wanted you to all see this. So this is kind of so first up we got checking accounts, and this is kind of what we talked about. So all in green, you have your bank checking, fold checking, strike checking, and bank savings. And see, kind of to your question, I put bank savings as basically a checking account because it doesn't really do anything else. Okay, and then we talked about what's the Bitcoin equivalent of a checking account. Lightning, Liquid, Whirlpool, things like this. Okay, so let's move into the debt section and back to what he talked about in the back about taking USD dollar debt. A 30-year mortgage. So a 30-year mortgage is another effective way to short the dollar. And so mortgage debt, for a long time, people kind of understand that game of using mortgage debt because real estate goes up because of money printing and the Cantillon effect, that kind of thing. So I kind of highlight mortgage and your home equity in this color, highlight debt in red. I put the work 401k. This is kind of what we talked about if you had been doing it the regular way, you're still at your job, so you can't get access to that money yet, so the S&P is, your best option at the moment. That's still kind of in a green because it's still tied to the USD. And then here you go. I kind of combine the savings and investments, but what would this look like? It would probably look like having an IRA, having some on a hardware wallet, having some in an exchange, and then see your fold that stacks up your transitionary checking account every week. So for this little demo, I just made up this imaginary person. Okay, so they maintain an average balance in their USD checking and savings. They maintain an average balance in their BTC checking, so their Lightning accounts, Liquid accounts, just by messing around and trying different wallets, but just a small amount. Let's say their home value started at $250,000 and it went up for 1%. I did, with this mock budget, I just did 2021 year to date. So January up to September, and we'll show you the net worth, that graph in a second. So house went up 1% a month. Say the principal on the mortgage is going down $1,000 a month. Say their credit cards just maintain the average balance. So it's just a cyclical. And then the work 401k, say they're doing $2,000 a month to their work 401k. So this person that I'm modeling, and you'll see this in the graph, they're not over allocating to Bitcoin and they're not over allocating to USD. They're kind of they're basically splitting it a third or just equal into both. And so we're going to see what happens on the graph. And so say they had the choice IRA and it was at half a Bitcoin and they were contributing about 3 million sats a month to it. And then say their fold was at 100,000 and it goes up about 25,000 sats a week. And I want to show you something with the colors right here. But so something we do is we take our USD net worth divided by the current price of Bitcoin that day. And that gives you your Bitcoin net worth. And it kind of back to continuing to try to train your mind to think in both units at the same time. It's kind of an interesting metric if you've never looked at your entire portfolio in Bitcoin. So, all right, let's see let me show you something with the colors right here. So you can see that total net worth by the end of the year. So total net worth at the beginning of the year started at 150,000, and by the end of the year it was 230, 240ish. But what I like about these colors and what I like about looking at my whole picture in this is when you keep a constant balance of float, keep a constant balance float of the green, and then real estate just does its thing. And then you can see like how much Bitcoin like adds. And you can see how you're actually able to like weather the quote unquote volatility like of the thing by taking a wide ranging approach of like, so this is where I was talking, how I started with like I'm married, just had a little baby, like Bitcoin is like a thing for my family. Like it's not just a thing that like I do and just like kind of squirrel away money on my phone. Like this is a reality that like we're talking about, and I'm like talking about with my mother-in-law and like talking about with everyone. And so, and I'm sure like some of you have experienced that. And so if you're at that point right now, like getting your family involved in this, like really talking with them is can really like help this to kind of exponentially start to take off for you. And so I would really encourage you to talk to them about Fold app or just any kind of like simple thing. Or that's really what I wanted to end on here. And like I can hit me up on Twitter and like I'll send you this link too for you to kind of mess around with the spreadsheet. But yeah, like we're living in transitionary times. Like that's another thing. Like if anything came off clunky like about today and me just like being up there and us like talking about this or whatever, that's all chopped up to the fact that like there isn't like, I can't sit up here and give you the Dave Ramsey 7 steps of the thing of like, this is exactly how you do it of the thing of like, because there isn't that. Like we're all 12 years into like realizing the tech level, like Bitcoin was a computer science and mathematical step forward for humanity that we're like wrapping our heads around, and the legacy like financial world is wrapping our heads around, and individuals are wrapping their heads around. Like all of that is underneath, like all of that is the base thing, and then I'm just trying to like roughly throw out today like a small mental framework that I've like used, just with my family. Like, and so every single person is like developing that like with their family and with the tool stacks that are like matching them.